Hello, good afternoon. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. My name is Ben Tagoe. I am a screenwriter and playwright, originally from Scotland, now live in Yorkshire. Worked on a whole host of TV shows from Coronation Street and Casualty, as my colleague here, Steve, has done a lot of, and also still write for the theatre. And I'm going to be in conversation with Steve about predominantly his career as a director. We'll talk a little bit about how writers and directors do or don't interact that much in some of the shows we've worked on. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Steve here. Steve is a director with 20 years experience in all kinds of drama, from daytime staple Doctors to peak time favourite Doctor Who, from Killing Eve to Death in Paradise. He has recently spent 7 months in Serbia making 7 episodes of period crime drama Miss Scarlet and the Duke for PBS. And Steve has enjoyed his biggest successes on BBC's flagship medical drama Casualty, where he directed the 30th and 35th anniversary shows. His work on the series COVID special episode won special mention from the judges at the Broadcast Awards. And we'll be taking some questions as we go along. So if you do have questions, put your hand up and we will try to get to you. Obviously, we might not be able to take all the questions, but we'll do as many as we can. So I guess the first thing, Steve, is how did this career start for you?
I grew up in Wigan, where it was kind of scorched earth up there. There wasn't a lot to do. So apart from playing kind of hide and seek with my friends, we used to just watch films all the time, and you never thought that I'd ever kind of get in to do anything like that. And then I did a lot of kind of graphic design and stuff, still watching lots of films. My film school before learning properly was like going to the local Odeon. You know, you kind of develop a taste of stuff that you like and don't like. And then I thought, I'm going to try and, push my career forward and stop, dreaming and actually try and make it happen. So I did a course up in Newcastle where we made like lots of kind of TV programs. One of them won a Royal Television Society Award, which is why it's so lovely to be here. And I thought, well, maybe I know what I'm doing. So I came down to London. I knew I wasn't going to walk straight into a job directing the next Star Wars movie. So what I did was I learned how to be an editor, and I worked for BBC News and various other outlets, and was making short films in my spare time. Never any funding, just with friends. And then one of the shows that I was working on, which was a show called Liquid News, which was an entertainment news show, and Mal Young, who was the head of BBC Drama at the time, came on as a guest, and I gave him a copy of one of my short films and said I'd like to do some TV drama, and he got me into Doctors. And I thought it was going to be much harder than that. I built up all this nerves about, someone's going to shout at me if I ask, and simply it was just by asking and making that small leap that I managed to get into the industry.
I think it's interesting when you say that, because I think that is the common thing with any careers in TV. Is this mic working okay? I was kind of coming and going a bit there. Yeah, any of these careers in TV, I think there's always a bit of groundwork that you have to do under your own steam to make it happen. And it's the common thing when you speak to anybody who's built a career, there's that bit at the start where you don't get paid and you have to engineer opportunities and just try and make some stuff, Oh,
100%, yeah, because I'd heard that there was people who were going to these bigger universities and you would get funding, or you would apply for funding and it would take 2 years' time. And I thought, well, I want to just get out there and make my own things and make mistakes. And most of my early stuff was embarrassing. They were just making films with friends. A lot of them were fight scenes and just learning how you literally shoot something and put it together, learning the mechanics of it. But I think coming from an editing background is invaluable for a director, because you don't always have the time to get everything you need, but you get, what's the phrase? Like you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. So it's been a fantastic kind of grounding for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I remember making a short film and directing a short film of mine, and it was the first time I'd heard my words spoken. And then I was in the editing process, and I realised how much more I could have done on the page before. It was it's a really instructive thing, I think, to start editing something. People underestimate how big a part the storytelling process editing actually is.
It is, because also, obviously, I mean, for a director like myself, who's like a working director who has had like a reasonably long career, and I think that you want to, half of your job is creative and the other half is practical. So it isn't all about beard stroking and sort of, dreaming about stuff. Part of it is, how am I going to get this shot on time with the resources that I have, with the time that we have, and it's a really big part of the job. And when you're starting out, what producers will want, they'll want to know, can you shoot this to a schedule? Obviously, they want it to look great as well, but they want to know, can you shoot 12 pages a day? Can you shoot I did 28 pages a day on doctors, which is like almost 28 minutes. It's just, which was crazy. But there's never, you'll know this, there's never enough time on any job. But starting out on something like doctors was fantastic training because you use your best ideas first and you get on and you do it.
Yeah, no, I think working at pace is something that not everyone can do, and it is. I think whatever aspect of TV, at some point you're going to have to work under pace and pressure. So make sure you're up for a bit of that if you fancy one of these careers. So we're going to see one of your clips of your work here now, Steve, and is the first clip we're going to see is your much praised continuing drama episode Casualty, in which we have both worked on. Mine was a while ago and was a bit less sort of Casualty than you've done. And this is like one of these shows that is a real staple of British television that's been going a long time, and is an incredibly tough show to write, and I would imagine quite a tough show to direct.
It is. I mean, and the clip that we're going to watch. When I first got the opportunity to do Casualty, I had my first meeting. They said, what do you think of Casualty as a show? And I said, well, to me, Casualty is a Western. And they said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, the ED is like the town, and Charlie's the mayor, and Noel's the bartender, and Dylan's the undertaker, and the paramedics are the gunslingers. And they said, great, and I got a job on that. And I've been back lots of times, and I've been really lucky to do lots of really big episodes. We did one where we crashed a helicopter into the hospital, which was great. But this one, I'm just super proud of. It was an episode where all of the dialogue was improvised by the actors. So some people misread that when it came out, that they thought that we just made the episode as we go. You can never do that. But all of the beats of the scenes were written. But what we did was we shot it like a documentary. So we didn't really use any any kind of fake lighting. It was shot almost for real. The actors walked in. We rehearsed the scene very quickly once. We talked about what the scene was going to be about. And this scene, really striving for authenticity. It's quite a hard scene to watch. And the episode was all about the tough decisions and the challenges that real life paramedics have to make. So we wanted to put them in a really, really unfortunate situation. And all that's happened before this clip is the paramedics are on a night shift. They've been to a time waster because a lot of people waste time when they call ambulances. And they arrive at this call late and something really awful happens.
Got it. Right. You take that one?
Yep.
Through here. Upstairs or downstairs? In there.
Right. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Are we looking for time?
Yeah, it's over 20 minutes now.
Please don't stop. Please don't stop.
Liz,
Please don't stop. Don't stop.
his heart hasn't restarted, love.
Please don't stop.
My colleague is going to stop now.
Where were you? I was on my own with him for half an hour. Where were you? Don't stop.
I need to stop. Liz, we've done over 20 minutes now of compressions. And he has died. My colleague is going to stop compressions.
How am I supposed to tell my daughter that her father is dead? Leave him alone! Get out! Get out! Get out! Leave him alone! You're useless!
We'll give you some time, okay? We'll just be outside. Come on.
Okay.
You?
We did everything we could.
Yeah, except get you in time.
Wow, powerful stuff.
Yeah, that was the point of it, was just trying to make it feel as authentic as possible because, Casualty's been going for such a long time. Some of the episodes are, a bit more soapy, a certain type of feel, but what we've been really trying to push in the last couple of years is just trying to make it, to break that sort of, the feel of the show make it feel more natural, so it's set in the real world, and really rely on the advisors for to try and get the scenes to feel as authentic as possible. And it was a really tough scene to shoot, and it was hard. It's still hard to watch because my dad died of a heart attack, and I really wanted it to feel as authentic as possible. So yeah, I'm very proud of it, and we won a BAFTA for it as well, which was fantastic.
For that specific episode,
Yeah.
No, it's really. It'd be good to hear you talk a little bit about how you go about achieving that, in terms of how you work with the actors, the sort of interaction you have with them before you start shooting, all that kind of stuff.
So for a long time, I was always scared to talk to actors because coming from a technical background and an editor, I would just, when I was making films with my friends, I would just say it like this. And what, over the years of kind of doing this, you get to learn what actors want. They want active verbs to play, you want them to attack, you want them to seduce. But this was a kind of slightly different situation because what we would do is we talked about it separately with all of the actors. And when we turned up there that night, we just made sure everyone was very quiet. And we talked about what the scene was going to be about in a very rough kind of blocking and where we wanted the scene to go dramatically. So we knew that the guy was going to be on the floor with a heart attack and the wife was distraught and very upset that the paramedics were late, and that we knew that we wanted her to attack them verbally, and that the paramedics should feel like they've failed when it's completely out of their control because the game is stacked against them. So we rehearsed it once, and we shot it, I think, 3 times, and that was it. It's quite a exhilarating way to shoot because you shoot it quite quickly as well. And you don't have to do those kind of, here's your wide shot, here's the over the shoulder of this. It was very much, we tried to make them feel like the cameras were shooting it live. So like, not that you would ever see a camera operator in the room, but they were shot from positions which you could actually have cameras in the room. So it was almost, completely shot like a documentary.
It's funny, sometimes I think when you see improvised dialogue, you can see the improvisation, whereas with that felt incredibly natural there. And I guess that's about casting the right actors who've got those skills, obviously.
Well, what we did when we were casting is that we set out a normal casting time at Elstree, and we had a really good actor called Sally Hodgkiss, who does a lot of improvisation, and the people who came in all had to have done a bit of improvisation. And also, funnily enough, a lot of the people who came in, the people who were best, had done a lot of comedy because they seemed to think even faster. I don't know what it was. They were very good at that. And we were spoilt for choice because people just, they really wanted to sort of to treat this with the respect it deserves. And it's a really tough watch. I mean, that's probably the hardest scene in the episode to watch, but the whole thing is a cry for help, I suppose, really.
Yeah. I think this is maybe a good time to break for our first question, actually. Has anybody got any questions? Have we...
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kristen. I'm a producing MA student at Goldsmiths. I also have been an actor in this country for about 8 years, 7 years. And I know that with the announcement of the end of Doctors, there has been a lot of panic in the acting world because it was such a great training ground for actors and presumably for a lot of people working on the show. So I was wondering if you see a new show that's coming up that seems to be providing that, or something that you've worked on is kind of that training ground.
Well, hopefully there will be, because as you said very clearly, then was that Doctors was was a long-running afternoon drama, and it gave the start to Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Eddie Redmayne as actors, and lots of people, not just directors, but editors and everything. And obviously you still want to make the best drama, but it was also a good training ground as well. And every time people reach out to me and say, how do I get into directing TV drama, I would always say, you want to try and get through the door on Doctors. And with that going next year, and also with like Hollyoaks, which is now going online as well, it's hard to know where to kind of point people, whether that's actors or directors as well. I'm confident that the BBC will address that because, as our nation's broadcaster, it's part of hopefully their responsibility to be able to get people, the next generation of storytellers to come through the door, and actors as well. So I'm sure they're working on something. I don't know what that's going to be, whether that's going to be another show or a certain program. I think that they should get people to kind of come and shadow on shows like Casualty, for a week or so, or through different periods, the prep and the post and the actual shoot, and then the people who show the best ability for it, then let them shadow properly. They can direct an episode, but this is just kind of wishful thinking. I'm sure that there's a plan in place. There has to be.
I hope they have got a plan in place, because I don't think change is always a bad thing, as long as that capacity remains for actors. I mean, the first scripts I ever wrote for TV were Doctors. I did a couple back in the day, and it really was. I think the good thing about Doctors as well was there was a certain amount of sort of, both for actors and writers, your own voice in their original stories, that kind of stuff, and that's the thing that I hope they'll find some way of preserving, because it'll be a real loss to the British TV landscape if they don't sort of fill that space.
And there's a certain, there's the huge, the viewing figures are actually still very good, and a lot of people rely on that as part of their daytime viewing, and but selfishly from our point of view, it's that you want people to get trained up and the next generation to come through. But hopefully, I'm sure there will be a plan for that to be addressed.
Yeah, hope so. We'll do another quick question before we move on, actually. Which one where are you pointing?
There's someone at the back or someone over there?
Right at the back there, yeah. I can see a hand waving.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Harry, and my question would be, do you want me standing up? For any up-and-coming directors or early on in their career, would you say a show reel or would be essential? What would a show reel look like, or what would people be looking for? And how would you go around finding an agent and your first steps into getting booked for blocks or episodes?
Great, so there's a lot to unpack there. So when I first started out, I was making short films, and I couldn't get any agents to watch my stuff until I got this kind of open door to kind of get a gig on Doctors, and when I did, I managed to get an agent straight away. I think obviously if you've got a short film, then that's as good as doing a show reel. I think it's obviously great if that short film has been in some festivals or has been has got some kind of notoriety, or that it's gone out there. But even so, what you do is you just, these days, we're going to sound very old here, but like, we didn't used to have all the social media stuff, did we? But these days, you can reach out to, if you're a director, obviously it's nice to reach out to other directors on social media, but like I can't, other directors can't give you a job. They can suggest you can reach out to somebody, but generally you want to look at the producers who are working on the types of shows you want to work on, and reach out to them. You can find most people either on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and you can sometimes find their email address, and it's very simply, all you do is you ask them, can you spare 4 minutes to watch my short film or my show reel? Some will reply, some won't. You've got no harm in putting it out there. Hopefully then what you'll do is you get a conversation going. You check in with that person a few times a year. They might not have any blocks or shadowing opportunities straight away, but what you want to do is you want to say, if they get back to you and say, we're completely full, you say, that's great, I'll check back in with you in a few months, hope that's okay. But when you're writing to those people, what you want to say to them is, I watched last Friday's episode and it was great. Don't make it a cold transactional thing. You want to sort of personalize it, say, congrats on winning that award, or this episode is very good and I just thought I'd drop you a line. Make it sound like you want to work on their show. And it can take a while, but the people who tend to make it, I think you agree, Ben, is that people who stick at it, because some people, it takes a certain amount of toughness, but also sensitivity. We were just talking about this, weren't we? Is that you want to be a sensitive, creative storyteller, but it can be tough because you get like a lot of no's, but there's the people who tend to make it, people who stick it out.
I think that bit you're talking about at the start, when you're trying to sort of get your first gig, will sort a bit of the wheat from the chaff, to coin a phrase, because of that little bit of rejection and being ignored and not getting responses and things like that. You kind of have to get used to that. Whatever you're doing, whether you're an actor, I think it's really hard for actors if you've not got that writing, directing aspect to you, because if you're a director or a writer, you've got that capacity to make something, and with all the technology and the platforms we've got now, it's easier than ever to do that, to at least have something to sort of share. Whereas I think if you're an actor, because not all actors have got that storytelling chops, they've just not got that. They can do the performance part. So yeah, I think getting yourself toughened up to that rejection and being ignored is probably quite helpful.
I've been teaching some actors classes, and what I say to actors who are trying to get a start, and if you're not getting gigs, is that shoot, create a character. Don't overthink it. Say, I'm going to do it in 2 weeks today. You shoot it on an iPhone. You say you're going to be a jealous husband who's gotten home early, and you say that car's parked in the driveway again, and I'm going to go in there today and I brought a hammer with me, and I'm going to go through with it, and talk yourself out of it and make a short film out of characterization. Because if you come in the room and you're meeting a director, if you can create a character like that, and you've got the balls to kind of get off your ass and do it yourself, then that's massively appealing for us, because it shows that you're creative and you can create characters. So if you're not always getting those gigs, you can just create your own work sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me just check what we're doing for time here. Take one more question up from the person here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm studying the first year at Westminster Film BA. And the question is, so you know when you film this kind of difficult scenes with like death, pain, some sort of a lot of pain,
Yeah.
do you or any team members get ever triggered? And then if yes, how do you cope with that during the filming?
Well, generally, we would speak to people before we shoot, because obviously it's something like the scene you just saw then is very, it's very typical, sadly, and it's hard to watch. So we'd speak to people beforehand and just do a bit of digging on them, if you had anything like this happen. And generally, we just speak to everybody beforehand and make sure they're okay with this. But when we shot that scene, the medical advisor was crying after we watched it, and I said, "Oh, are you okay?" And the guy called Nick, he just said it felt really real, and that it wasn't this kind of like TV melodramatic kind of version of it. It was taking the tropes of that out and just trying to make it feel as authentic as possible. But no, we would check with everybody rigorously and speak to them, because we don't want someone getting too triggered when they're working on it. Yeah.
And I know you guys had a sort of trigger warning this morning at the start of the day, but at any point with the clips we're showing, I guess the other thing with this stuff is perhaps it adds up in things as well. So if at any point, if there's a clip coming, if people need to sort of...
There's nothing as traumatic as that. The rest of them
is that we've gone in at the sort of highest level there. Yeah. We'll probably do a few more questions in a little bit again. Sure. So if you've got a question, hold on to it, and we'll carry on talking. And one of the prompts I've got in here is to talk about the sort of writer-director relationship in TV. And I'm really interested to hear your sort of thoughts on that.
I very rarely ever get to have any interaction with a writer, and I find that really confusing. There's a sort of on almost every single show, there's a buffer where it's like the script editor or the producer or whatever. It's like a negotiation. It's like, you're inside a building and we're trying to say, could you give us a bit more of this, or could we take that out? And things can be misconstrued, or that there's a sort of a buffer there. I mean, it's frustrating, because all we want to do is make the best episode possible, the best film possible, make it feel as truthful and as real or as dynamic as what we want. But it's frustrating for you, I'm guessing, as well.
Yeah, I've never quite understood it's really interesting, because in America, writers are showrunners or producers, and the writers are the sort of showrunners, episodic writers are the showrunners' eyes and ears on set, and they kind of, and I think from what I gather, I've not done that particular thing myself, but there's a diplomatic line you need to walk, where you're not undermining the director, you're there to have a conversation and mutual respect. And even like on the soaps, I mean, I worked on Corrie for years, I've done episodes of Emmerdale, EastEnders, stuff like that, but I was a core writer on Corrie, I was kind of at every story conference, so you knew what was going on. And same thing, you'd be sitting at home writing and you'd get a phone call from a script editor saying such and such actor doesn't want to say this line a certain way or whatever, and that would be a conversation usually through an intermediary as well. And I think on those shows, I think on the big sort of like the Corries and the EastEnders, it's a time thing apart from anything else. And I think unless there's a process in there to have those conversations, I think that becomes a time thing. But I'm always surprised on the more kind of bespoke, high-end shows that there's not more interaction between writers and directors.
And also, directors are brought in my experience anyway, very, very late in the process. So, people think you get involved in the development of the script and stuff. It's not. You start, and you've got like your 4 weeks prep or whatever it is to work on it, and that's it. Directors are more interior decorators, I find, rather than kind of architects, because the building's already built. You're just there to sort of paint the walls a little bit and change the kind of light switches and stuff. You might be able to knock 2 rooms together, but generally the structure of that episode is pretty much set. And sometimes that's great, because you work with great writers and stuff, and it's very easy because when the script is solid, you've got solid groundwork. It's very easy to do. Like one of the other shows we're going to talk about soon, Miss Scarlet and the Duke, didn't have to change anything. We could have shot the scripts the day after I read them. They made perfect sense. And then you work on other things where it'd be great to speak to the writer to say, I don't understand what this means, or we've got 2 characters doing exactly the same thing here, or and just to find out what's this scene about, because like I know the mechanics of what this is about, but like why is this scene in the story? And sometimes you just need to explain it to you.
I think there is a real resistance in British television to bring directors into the process early, and as a writer, I think the main thing is getting one set of notes, that have been sort of a consensus of And I think there are always already a lot of people involved in that process, early stages, different producers and script editors and different levels, both from the production company and from broadcasters. So to add an extra voice into that, I think is more, I don't think it's anything that writers ever sort of say, I don't want a director involved. I've certainly never felt that. And actually, I think it would be really useful to have those. And I've got a few friends, American friends, who've been those writers on set. And it's really interesting to hear about their role and how actually they are changing things on the hoof, and they're saying to the director, the scene's not working. How do we fix this? And rather than the director doing that, who's maybe not been in a writer's room for 20 weeks and doesn't necessarily have the same level of granular sort of understanding of what the showrunner wants, you've got people collaborating, and that's the thing is, I think when you get the right personalities, collaboration can be one of the most fun things about this business.
Absolutely, it's like, you know, it's that alchemy of sparking ideas off each other, and like, you know, it's never just one person who makes a show. And I think the most important thing that sometimes they forget is that, you know, the show is the most important thing as well. Like, I know we all want to treat each other with respect and everything, but sometimes I found that on some shows that they were saying, oh, well, we need to bow everything to the writer, and you say, look, I want it to be the writer's script, but also we're just trying to make the best episode, and like this doesn't work, you know, and because you know, sometimes people have been so close to it for so long, and you come in and you say, well, we can't shoot that in the time that we've got, and it's just good to have that sort of open channels, isn't it?
And I think that's the thing. It's a lot of it can be about ego and insecurity, and if you can, and I think as any part of this process in this business, it can be quite bruising. And I think managing your own insecurities is quite, and being open to, you know, just because something isn't quite working, it's not necessarily because you've done it wrong. It's just because there are points along the way where things need to change slightly, and being open to that. And actually, you can really add a lot of value, I think, by being that person who is open to making those changes or explaining why it needs to stay the same. You know, it's kind of, but I think when you're doing that from a point of view of, you know, I'm not going to fight this point because I want to be right or I want to retain my place. I'm going to fight this point because I understand why I did what I did and why it needs to be that way. You know, it's kind of, I think it's all about personalities involved really into it. You know, I think if you go into it and try and be as open and try and, we've all got our insecurities, leave your insecurities to one side and be a bit vulnerable, I guess, as well as part of it.
100%, yeah.
But then you need that sort of environment to be created for you, I think, as well, don't you? You need the sort of groundwork of that to be there.
Yeah,
definitely.
Exactly.
We're going to watch another clip from your work, which I think you've just referred to, Steve, and that is Miss Scarlet and the Duke, which was for PBS Masterpiece. PBS is, that's American
That's
network.
American, and it was on Alibi over here in the UK.
Alibi, okay. So do you want to just talk us into this clip, Steve?
Yeah, so I worked on the second and third series. A friend of mine called Declan O'Dwyer did the first series, which was shot in Ireland, and it's a sort of a period drama about London's first female Victorian detective. So it's like a female Sherlock Holmes, I suppose, and she teams up with an old flame of hers, and they solve crimes together. I really enjoyed watching the first series, and I was really excited to be given the call to do the second series. Then I was asked to do the third series, which we did back to back, but we couldn't shoot it in Ireland because the studios were full over there. This wasn't long after the pandemic, and so we went over to Serbia to shoot it. At first I thought, how do you make a Victorian London street in Serbia? And we literally built the soundstage, recreated what was shot in Dublin in Serbia, and obviously your money goes a little bit further out there, but we tried to make it feel like it was exactly the same show, and it was just an absolute joy to do. The writing just made it so easy. The actors were great to work with, and I got to sort of push my visuals a bit more because my feeling on this was that my favourite director, Steven Spielberg, if you want to know how to direct anything, watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just the techniques and how he does everything on that is like an absolute masterclass. And so what I did when I was doing this was that I tried to get lots of little kind of very subtle Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark references. So there's lots of silhouettes and the way the camera moves and stuff. I just tried to be really bold with the visuals and still retain the feel of the first episodes. But when you're coming in to a series that's already been existing, you know, you want to put your stamp on it, but it needs to feel like the same show.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. How was it working with a Serbian crew then? Was that challenging for you?
Very smoky, because everyone smokes over there. Every single restaurant, wherever you go. I mean, they were the hardest working crew. Fantastic, because they make a lot of features over there. They make it a lot of low budget kind of action movies and stuff, and they work really fast, and they're super passionate about what they do, and they're just real pros, you know. And they were fantastic to work with.
Cool. Let's run that clip, please.
Lord Billingdon.
Miss Scarlet.
I apologise for disturbing your evening. However, I wanted to inform you that I found them.
You found them? My babies? Oh! I am most impressed. I must admit, I wasn't entirely convinced you had it in you.
Well, as promised when you engaged me, I offer a highly professional service.
I shall fetch my man. He will take them home.
Lord Billingdon. Matter of my fee?
Oh, of course. I shall send payment to your office on Friday.
May I ask why not now?
Because it is not convenient.
But Friday's not convenient for me. Our contract clearly states payment in full on delivery.
I have daughters your age. If they spoke to me in that kind of fashion, they would be reprimanded at once. You will be paid at a time agreeable for me, young lady. Now I bid you good night. What in heaven's name? You would not dare.
That was a brilliant scene, that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was the first episode of first scene of this of the first episode I was doing. So, you know, it was written that way, but also, you know, really wanted to lean on the moments. Like I don't know what you feel when you do this, but whenever I'm reading a script for the first time, I either think, am I watching a story or am I telling a story? So, and that changes my approach to when I'm working on something like Casualty, like the scene that you saw before, feels like I'm watching a story, like I'm an observer, I'm invisible in the room, whereas something like this, I'm telling the story, so I'm using the camera to move, to sort of make you feel a certain thing. But yeah, it was a really fun opening. You know, we shot in this little kind of bar in Serbia, and then we went out to our backlot, which was built. But things like it wasn't built completely because it was right at the start. So when we're looking one way towards Kate, who plays Miss Scarlet, it was on one side of the street. And then when we did the shots of the gentleman, it was a completely different part of the street because it hadn't been built, so we couldn't shoot it where it was actually. So you have to think of things like that, sometimes practical ways of how you're going to shoot stuff. But yeah, I'm really proud of the series.
And in terms of the prep for a scene like that, do you have to do a camera script? How many cameras did you use there?
So generally in a lot of kind of TV dramas, you tend to have 2 cameras these days a lot of the time. And it just means you can get through things you know, with a certain amount of speed. DPs, the director of photography, would rather you just use 1 camera, and they hate it when you cross shoot because they want to tend to light 1 area rather than trying to light 2. But my prep for this was that you know, when I first started out, I would plan everything, you know, insanely down to the detail. Camera plans on a floor plan, storyboards, lists of everything. But just over my kind of experience, I know that, you know, I know what the shots are going to be. I'll talk to the showrunner or the producer, and then what you do then is, you know, you just do it on the day. I don't do shot lists. I don't do camera plans because I've got it all in my head. My short-term memory is terrible. I'm always losing my phone, my coat, my kids, you know. But you know, I can recall, you know, everything very, very clearly. It drives my wife up the wall because, you know, she'll say, have you taken the bins out? And I'll just go, oh, I've forgotten or whatever. And then she'll say, how are you in charge of a crew of 150 people sometimes? And you think, I've no idea.
There you go. That's interesting. And like, I don't know if you can divulge this, but a scene like that, so that's an hour of drama there. What sort of budget are you talking or something like that?
I don't know. And weirdly, directors we're not privy to that kind of stuff. The producers really keep that stuff close to the desk. It's not a big budget show, you know. It's not anywhere near as big as like a big BBC One drama. It's probably half the budget of one of those, but that is a really good challenge for a director because you don't always have, you know, an infinite amount of money or time. So you're trying to sort of use to make it feel more expensive than what it is. So I brought in a DP who I'd worked with before, who's a big film fan like I am. And we talked about how we were going to light it, like, you know, Indiana Jones and so on, and how we were going to move the camera. And just having that confidence in telling the story, rather than some directors, what they'll do is they'll just shoot the hell out of a scene and then in the edit, they will think, well, maybe we'll go to that angle, to that one. Like, I know when I'm shooting it exactly how every shot's going to go together because I'm working out, well, I need this shot to go here and I need something to bridge between these two things here. And generally when I'm as long as I get my first shot in a scene, even though I've always planned what the shots are, everything always lines up and relates to that. So it's just experience, you know, you get to know, you know, how you're going to shoot a scene. And you know, you speak to your first AD, assistant director, who will say you've got, like a scene like this took about 2 hours to shoot in the room, and then we did the bit outside where there's the reveal of the pigeons and stuff. That took probably another 45 minutes. But generally, you know, it was quite a fast pace, but you know, a really enjoyable time to be had.
It's really, really interesting. Really interesting. Last sort of question for me in this, and I'll maybe take a couple of questions on this scene. I suspect there might be a few. So, the music was really good in that, really worked and really was part of the storytelling. In terms of, you know, your involvement with composers and your process in that, could you talk to us a little bit about that?
On some shows you get involvement with the composers and the grade and the sound mix, that kind of stuff. This one I didn't because it was sort of run like the American model. In America, what they tend to do is, you know, you hand it over to the producers and then the producers go ahead and sort of make, you know, all the changes they want to make. And even though the edit didn't change that much, from what myself and the editor put together. And I'm an obsessive film music fan, and we use some music from the first series, and I use music from like Sherlock and, you know, the British one and also the Robert Downey Jr. one, just sort of give a flavour to the composer, because what you don't want them to do is you don't want them to copy it. You want to say, this is what the music needs to do, and, you know, use your musical expertise and dialect to spray the musical perfume around the scene that you need. So, but I love working with composers, and the music is what is my favourite part of the process, because when you hear that music come on, it just feels more legitimate, feels complete. But on this one I didn't get to, but you know, I'm very happy with the score because it's very similar to what we actually put together in the edit.
I thought that music was good. I thought it really, really, really worked. Spray the musical perfume. I like that phrase. I'm going to steal that.
No, I stole it from Hans Zimmer.
You stole that? Okay,
he's done a bit of stealing now.
Just pass it on. I can use it a wee bit as well.
Yeah.
We'll take a couple of questions at this point, I think, as well. A hand went straight up right in the middle there, very quick.
Hi, I'm Finn. I am studying media production at Birmingham City, but my main interest and what I like to go into is filmmaking. I suppose my question is, you said the actors were really good to work with on that, but I think when I try and make shorts or anything, or show other people one, is how do you communicate to the actors exactly do you want? Because you said they're very good. Do you, if the actors are acting exactly what you want, do you just lay back and not say anything and just say that was great? Or if they're not quite giving you what you want, do you say to them, well, can we do that again a bit better? Or can we move that around? And if you do, how do you approach that without maybe offending them?
That's a fantastic question, honestly, because for the longest time, as I said, I was terrified of speaking to actors. A very quick story, one of the first Doctors episodes I ever did, I had a scene where there was quite an elderly lady in a seat, and she was waiting for her son to turn up at the hospital, and every single, at the start of every single line, she would go, and then she would say a line, and then her next line, she would say, like, oh, is my son here yet? And I was terrified to go in, because first off, how do you sort of say, can you not make ghostly horse noises at the start of every line? And I was too scared to say anything, and I got into the edit, and I couldn't cut around it, and the producer said, why didn't you ask them to say it? And I thought, never be afraid to go in and say it. So generally, yeah, look, first off, it's a very easy thing to say, but you cast good actors. So, you know, if you get the right actors, your job is 100 times easier. And what you want to do with a lot of the time is just make sure they're on the same page. They understand the story, ask them what it means to them and that kind of stuff. And then you're hoping that when you work with an actor that they know what they're going to do when they come on the floor. You know, you've talked about it, you've cast the right person, but you will work with actors sometimes who, it's like they've learned the lyrics to the song, but they don't know the melody. So like they've learned what the words are, but they haven't thought about where this goes in the story. And that, you know, there's no problem with you being air traffic control and guiding them in, but you will work with, you know, when you work with actors who aren't quite as across it, it is down to, well, you know, this is the scene in the episode where this happens, it happens here in the story, you know, the point in this is this, and your character's part in the story is this, and then what you want to, I generally will let the actors run it themselves first time, rather than imposing too many rules, because you know, you want to be able to hear their ideas, and if it's not exactly what you want, then what you want to do is you want to sort of say, well, what I'm going to try and get out of this is this. I think maybe we're peaking a bit too early here. You know, give them notes very discreetly. You know, and also, you know, like I said earlier, you know, they want active verbs and things to play, because you don't want to say you should be really angry here, but you want to say I want you to attack, or it could be someone trying to get someone to buy a car, and you might say, well, I want you to seduce them instead. Give them active verbs to play. And you've also got the edit to sell, you know, like to cut around things a lot of the time. But yeah, working with actors is a very kind of delicate balance, and not all of them are the easiest to work with. Some of them will be incredibly headstrong, and that you have to negotiate that and still get what you want. But my ethos with actors is that you want to give them lots of playing room within a space that you've created, and that's down to casting the right actor in the first place.
It's interesting, you talked about active verbs a couple of times during this process. I think from a writing point of view, it's one of the things you learn. If you pick the right verb, then you don't need an adverb, you know, you kind of, and it's really interesting you talk about that in the scene with the actors as well. It's a very similar sort of principle, I think.
Oh, completely, because like I just found, I mean, years ago when I was making films with my friends, I would say, you know, say it like this. Actors hate that, because then, you know, it's like you just get them to parrot back what you're doing, and also, like, sometimes there's a specific reason why you have a certain blocking, you know, how you're going to move the actors around. But generally, you know, just let them do it, you know, and because there's only really ever one or two ways you can do it, you know. And sometimes you might say to the actor, could you be stood over there by the window instead? Because I had this really good story Christopher Nolan talked about. I'm sort of paraphrasing here a little bit, but he was working with Al Pacino on Insomnia. Which no one ever remembers that one of his films, but yeah, he something to do with they were losing the light, and he wanted Al Pacino to stand by the window because the light was going to go, and his DP said, you know, we're going to have to shoot this very quickly. And so Christopher Nolan went over to Al Pacino and said something like, you know, Al, I think what you're trying to do here is, you know, you're looking out towards the future, and the light is creating this kind of stuff. And Al Pacino just said, you want me to stand by the window? And then he said, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. He said, that's all you had to say. And it's sometimes just good to be honest with actors as well. You just sort of say, you know, just say, you know, we're running out of time, or, you know, to give them the time they need. And, you know, there's prep you can do in the day where some directors will start off in first gear at the start of the day and end in fifth gear. You know, there's a thing about Hollywood in the morning, Hollyoaks in the afternoon.
I've heard this.
You know, all these kind of, or Doctor Who in the morning, Doctors in the afternoon, and Ben-Hur in the morning, Benny Hill in the afternoon. There's all these kind of phrases. But generally, it's because, you know, you always start the day and you think, I'm going to make Raiders of the Lost Ark today, and suddenly that time runs out. But what you learn with experience and listening to a first AD is to sort of manage your time throughout the day and be in third gear throughout the whole day. So when you get what you need, you move on. And so you don't kind of crash land at the end of the day, because inevitably what will happen is you'll do a really big dramatic scene, and you've got 11 minutes to shoot to see, and you're, okay, so your father's about to die, you've got one take at it, you know, you've got 45 seconds. You never want to put an actor in that situation, so you need to protect the actors as well.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I think one of the things, just that point as well about actors, is that I love about the theatre is that you always have that period where you get to interrogate a script and look at specific lines and scenes and what the intention is and where the emotional position is. And as a writer, you get to do a little bit of that. And it's interesting. There's always that thing, I don't know if you've heard this sort of adage before, and it is that film is a director's medium, TV is a producer's medium, and the theatre is a writer's medium. And that's what they say in terms of being the storytelling quote-unquote king in those environments. So. And
they say there's three writers, isn't there? There's the writer in the prep time, there's the director in the shoot, and then there's the editor.
Editor at the end,
so you know, it goes through has three different parents.
Yeah. Absolutely. We'll do one more question. This guy here's quite eager, so we'll do a question here and then we'll...
Hi, so my name is Nicholas. I just recently graduated Media and Com. My question was kind of, you've already slightly touched on it, but just kind of, I guess, differences in like both directing film and TV, and also different kind of sizes of production of TV, like how involved in the process you are, and like from pre to post-production, and within that kind of like even differences between directing for something big like Doctor Who to something maybe smaller, and just kind of what kind of is done in that way, and the role of the director.
Yeah, good question. I mean, you know, I haven't directed a feature yet. I'm hoping to at one stage, but with all of the, I've worked on stuff with like that's shot in 3 days, like no time, to stuff that's had much more time to do it. You always want to do exactly the same job, okay? Even if it's something that you're not, it may not be your cup of tea, you know, that like, you know, like we were talking earlier about, there are sometimes you'll take a job because it's a money job, you know, you need to pay the bills you've got, but, you know, keep a roof over your head. I still give that 100%, you know, like whether it's a sort of a really kind of small kid show to sort of doing Doctor Who or second unit on something like Killing Eve, you know, you want to go in there and show off what you can do and what your abilities are. There's a lot more talking when you do the bigger the productions, so there's lots more meetings and talking about stuff when, you know, there's a certain amount of talking you want to be able to do, but then after a while you just go, can we not just get on and do it? Because you have meetings after meetings after meetings, meetings about the meetings, and stuff that doesn't make any sense, and you end up sort of kind of going like, I've got no sense of what I'm actually talking about, when there's a certain amount of talking about it before you get on and do it. What's nice on the bigger shows is, I did Midsummer Murders once, and I actually got a trailer. I've never had a trailer before, and I was taking pictures and sending it to my kids, and the catering gets better as well, so that, like, you know, you on Midsummer Murders, you know, we would have like a barbecue every day and that kind of stuff, and then I've done kid shows, and the weirdest thing we have out there was a turkey cutlet with cafe au lait sauce, which I think someone spilt something in some kind of coffee and it fell on the turkey, and you served it up and you have to eat it. So like the catering gets better, I suppose, is the short answer.
Cool, we'll move on to another clip here. I'm just conscious of time a little bit. So our third clip of the day is The Last Bus. Do you want to give us a quick intro to that?
So this was a Netflix show, sadly only run from one series, which I think I got asked to do because I'd worked on Doctor Who, and it's a sort of Stranger Things, Goonies, 80s throwback to that kind of, you know, kind of golden era of kind of filmmaking, you know, really fun surface, you know, lots of visual effects and stuff with a kind of young cast. And then what the story was about, a group of kids on a field trip. Everyone in the world is made to disappear, and they're the only kids left in the world. And at the end, they track down the guy who basically made this thing happen, and they've come to his mansion, and they've got this piece of kit that will basically be able to bring everybody back. It was just fun to do some more visual effects again, and to lead on that kind of 80s kind of storytelling.
Give me the Nexus key. Give it to me! Oh. Run! Stop! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey!
T-minus 60 seconds.
Where's that? Help!
T-minus 50 seconds.
They're not gonna make it. You should have left me. Now we're all finished. Oh, come on, Daddy.
Whoa! T-minus 20 seconds.
Okay, this is new.
Everyone hold on!
4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.
Very tense scene there, yeah.
But again, very different from everything else. I mean, that's what's great, I'm sure, for writing as well, is when you get to stretch different muscles. I mean, that was me, you know, going back to being a 14-year-old watching, you know, the Goonies at the cinema or that kind of stuff. And you know, because I'm coming from a technical background, I understood about visual effects and that kind of stuff. And it was a really fun show to work on. But yeah, it sadly it only ran for one series.
That was really cool seeing that, really cool. Working with young people, you've done that more than once in your career, Steve, on other shows as well. How is that? Is there anything you've learnt along the way about dealing with younger actors and stuff?
It's tricky because when you're working with younger actors, you have kind of child hours. Normally on most shooting days you would do from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, and you have the actors all day. When you're working with actors under a certain age, you might only have them on set for 5.5 hours. So things like, they'd literally come and rehearse it once and you'd have to shoot with them very quickly. So you have to try and speak to them offset sometimes, and you have a chaperone there, literally with a stopwatch. So everything's done even under more pressure than normal. What you want to do is, again, you cast the right actor. The actors in this act, because I was doing the last block of The Last Bus, so they'd already been cast. And so, you try and speak to them, get on side, watch other episodes, see what the things they're good at, what the things they're bad at. Like one thing that was really tricky in this was that we shot with a volume. Have you ever heard this, what they do like on the Mandalorian, which is like outside the bus, we had all of these kind of screens so that when they were flying away, they didn't really have to react to the fact that the bus was flying, because outside the windows of the bus, we'd shot all these plates of the stuff going on, and because they were young and they were absolutely exhausted after a 6-month shoot, they were just like this, and we were saying, no, you're not going down to the high street. You're in a flying bus, and then then you have to try and give them, you try and explain what the story's about, and then what you would do then is you would sort of say, maybe you're a bit shorter of breath and you're a bit more wide-eyed and that kind of stuff, and try and give them technical things, and you get there, but sometimes it just takes a bit more time, a bit more explanation, but also don't treat them like kids. You want to, they're obviously kind of a certain intelligence, and you want to be able to sort of get them G'd up, and and they're a really good fun cast to work with.
Brilliant. Great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push on to the next clip fairly soon after this, and then see if we've got a bit of time at the end for any more questions. We'll get a quick chat about this one after. So this next one is a show that most people have heard of, Killing Eve, which has been a fantastically successful show. So do you want to give us your intro to this next clip, Steve?
So I was a second unit director on this. What a second unit director is that when there's a certain amount of time with actors or a schedule, what they'll have to sort of squeeze it into a certain window, and that if everything can't all be shot, or sometimes it can be that you come back afterwards and shoot stuff, you bring in a second unit director, and it's a really good into the industry as well. And what they'll do is you come in, sometimes you're just shooting things like phone screens and cars driving past. That's what a second director can do sometimes. But on this, I was lucky enough to shoot a few kind of really exciting sequences with the main cast. So the main unit director, John East, very experienced, lovely guy, he gave me his boards for the scene and then said, if there was anything you wanted to add, make it your own as well, which is great. And so I got to shoot the end of, I think this was from episode 4, and it was just great, because I was so proud of it, because I read all the scripts and I thought this is going to be something special. And that first series especially was fantastic.
Yeah, really cool show.
GPS has him 500 yards away.
We have to get to him now, Kenny!
Stop at the next gate. He's gonna have to get to you on foot.
Frank? Frank! We're at the top of the field. I don't think you can see us, but just make a run for it and just trust that we're here, okay? Frank, are you running or are you crying?
Running and crying.
Okay, we're here. Just run for it. Oh God, Frank! Frank! Shit! Frank! Oh God! All right, Elena, get in the back! Come on, Frank! Oh God, Frank! Oh God! Get in the back!
Oh, thank you! Oh, thank you!
Eve, go!
Go! Eve, what are you?
Oh my God!
No, drive!
Wow.
It was really good fun to do. I mean, and they were, working with kind of, Sandra Oh was great, and just, working with a fantastic kind of experienced crew, and because John had told me what he wanted, he'd done a lot of the work for me, but what you still want to get on the day is the performances, and trying to make it feel as good as possible. And it's an action scene, so it requires lots of bits and pieces. But yeah, I'm very proud to have worked on that show, especially the first series.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that sort of structure of, because you're a first and second and third ADs and different unit directors. Obviously, that'll vary on the terms of scale of the show, but just a little bit about that would be good.
So generally, for the directors, you have the main unit director who directs the actors and speaks to the DP, director of photography, and you're on it from start to finish. When you do your prep, you speak to all the different departments. You get a sense of how the sets are going to be designed. You're involved in casting the actors. You're a director, and you see it through to the end, to the edit. A first assistant director basically runs the floor, so that they've done a lot of scheduling. They've worked out how many scenes you're going to shoot in that day, and then they'll try and keep you on time. They'll say that we want to be off the scene at 10:30, or if there's any problems, they sort of shield it for you. They're also good to act as bad cop. If there's any bad news, you get them to give them the bad news, so you kind of come across as good cop. And the second assistant director is normally based in the production office, and they're scheduling generally what's happening for the next day or the next day is coming up. So they're getting actors to set on time. They're working out logistics. And the third assistant director is normally on the floor again, directs the background artists, the extras, and just has a team of runners and just, again, makes the floor run as smoothly as it possibly can.
Okay, cool. What I'm going to do is going to ask you a question here, and then if I've got time, we might have time for one more from the audience. So what's the best advice you can give to any aspiring director?
It's such a big question, isn't it? But I'd say think about what type of director you want to be, because there are lots of different types of directors. We're not all exactly the same. I'm a working director, so I work on a wide variety of shows. I'd like to be doing, massive big shows and that, but also then I've had a career where I've been able to pay the bills for 20 years, and I'm very happy with the work that I've done. There are some people who will do like a really amazing short film and then will jump onto a really big, say, Netflix show, and that's amazing, but also you won't have had the training that if you work your way up through the ranks, you're much more confident. But then obviously a crew will protect you as well. A DP and a first AD will never sort of leave you hanging in the wind. The show will get shot. But so there are different kind of career paths, and it's those kind of more artistic directors will not get as much work. They might get paid a little bit more, but it's sometimes it's hard to sort of to know exactly what type of stuff you want to do because you want to work. But sometimes, like if you start down a certain path, people will see you as a certain type of director, and it's hard to change their opinion. So just make sure you know what type of director you want to be, what type of shows you want to work on, and just keep at it. Like we said, if the people who make it, if you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a lottery ticket, and stop talking about it and just get on and do it.
I think that is a really, in whatever you want to do in this industry or any industry, I guess, but I think you meet a lot of people who talk about their ideas and plans, and the reality is you learn by doing and making a film with your phone or hearing if you're a writer.
Making mistakes.
Or whatever. Yeah, and seeing what doesn't work. I think there was a brilliant documentary David Harewood made a few years ago called The F Word, and it was about failure. Yeah. And it's an inevitable part of this, and actually what you'll learn more from failure than anything else.
So. Oh, 100%. I mean, like, it's like why, I watch every type of film at the cinema, because you want to see the stuff that doesn't work as well. Like my friends would always laugh at me because on my, when we used to get DVDs, I'd have like the 3 Colours trilogy, and next to that I'd have the Police Academy box sets. And, because, people would say, well, you need to watch every different type of thing, and also, you get to learn what type of stuff that doesn't work, yeah, absolutely.
100%. I'm going to try and jam in one really quick last question, and I'm going to go down the front here.
I'm Emma. I study film and English literature at Glasgow, and I was just wondering, you kind of have mentioned on it a bit briefly, but for people who are wanting to get into directing, it can be quite a daunting thing to be in charge of such a large cast and crew, and I was wondering if you had any advice as to when you first started off, how you got over that fear, and ultimately the director is the one in charge, so you have to be able to make the decisions, and do you have any advice on how to do that?
It's a really good question, because I didn't think I'd ever I come from a very working class family, and I thought that's filmmaking and directing is what other people did. I didn't do particularly well at my GCSEs, and I thought, sod it, why not? And just by gaining kind of experience and making mistakes, like we're saying, that you will start small. It's very, only the lucky ones will go straight into directing the massive shows and the film straight away. You'll make mistakes, and you'll learn, and you'll go through and work with people you know, but also bring new people in as well, and work with your friends. And the most important thing is, well, enjoy it. Like it's so important. Some people forget that you can enjoy it as well. Is that if it becomes hard work, then why are you doing it? It's just get out, watch stuff, enjoy it, work with your friends, and just enjoy the ride, and also be kind to yourselves. Like, it's not, you know, you're not going to make you know, a whiplash on your very first go. You know, you're going to take time to learn stuff, but you know, just be kind to yourselves and don't stress yourselves out, because it's a long road, and you know, if you stay on the road, you'll get to where you want to go.
Fantastic. Steve, I've found that absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for that, and thank you to you guys. I think we're taking a quick break now, and then there's a comedy session after this, so we'll be back for that. Thanks, guys. Thank you.